Lauren. This is Kyle, and it's another episode of He Said, She Said. Laura, it's been a little while. We've had some technical difficulties in the past, but I think we finally worked it out. How have you been?
I'm good. Massive change in the past 6 months, but coming through it, life.
So when you emailed me on a topic that we were going to talk about, you had one that you were very hot on. You sent me not only an article that you had written, but also one that you wrote it from, that kind of spawned this whole discussion that we're going to have. So, talk to us about what's on your mind.
It was from the article from Psychology Today, I believe it was, that talked about the emotional fragility or the lack of emotional resilience of college-age students and what that's doing to universities, how that's affecting our colleges and universities, and a very sobering article.
So you're talking about kids graduating from high school, going into college, that aren't prepared for the emotional things that they'll go through. They're not prepared for how to deal with. They're not prepared to how to deal with life.
Correct. I read the article because I have I have two boys in college, two kids in college, and what I started to read how these kids, these high school kids and college kids, are arriving at college, started to look a lot like some of the things that I see in the women that I work with. And I started to ask myself the question, which is, why are these kids not entering college prepared for everyday life, the complexities of everyday life? And if I'm seeing the same kind of things in all of the women, mostly mothers that I'm working with, are we contributing to it? Are we part of the problem? Are we not leading or teaching our kids the resilience that they really need to have for life?
The article went into some detail, and it was written by the head of the counseling department at Boston University, I believe. If you go to your website, you actually can see the most recent the article. And he really talks about a couple of things. So he talks about, in the last decade or so, that their counseling, and this is really across universities across the country, they're seeing a larger increase in the number of students who are seeking out, counseling help.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not for traumatic issues. This is for situations where the kid got a C in class, or they broke up with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or they had a fight with a roommate, and they are struggling with dealing with these things. And so this professor really went into some, general detail on what he thinks the issues are. And what were the issues?
I also want to draw attention to one of the things that grabbed me was the statistics of the number of young adults entering college on antidepressants or going on to antidepressants. And that statistic stuck with me because the research I've been doing is that 1 in 4 women is on an antidepressant today. And most of them, obviously, I would say are moms. A lot of them are mothers. And so I really that's when I started to tie these things together. The issues that the colleges are facing, are not being able to teach our children for fear that our children are going to fall apart and decompose in front of them. And listen, I've felt for a long time that none of us, the majority of adults, aren't resilient. They don't know how to manage. They don't have that emotional intelligence of how to manage when things go awry, when things fall apart, which is going to be, often in real life.
So back up for just a moment. There's a general consensus, and I know that we've talked about this on this program, and I've written about it, that kids in general, but boys in particular, are falling behind in really the entire spectrum of what we would consider, that progression towards adulthood. They delay adulthood longer, so they extend adolescence. They do worse in school. They do worse in relationships. There's evidence to cite high rates of pornography use, high rates of video gaming that are really perpetuating this extended adolescence in boys. And what they're finding is that when you take a look across the average college campus today, there are more girls on college campuses entering undergraduate programs than there are boys. So the belief is that we are, failing our children, specifically our boys. So there was 2 articles that was written in the spring of this year that was in the New York Times that talked about one. It kind of teased out a little bit more what we just talked about how boys are falling behind girls in pretty much every category, specifically though around education. And then they talked about the higher prevalence of ADHD in boys. Okay, that there's a more significant, there's a larger percentage of boys now that are being diagnosed with ADHD, and they talked about those things. I wrote an article probably in April of this year, and I called it "The Disease Called Boy." And in that article, I really talked about how you've got, and this is to your point earlier, boys that are getting diagnosed with ADHD, to your point, more kids graduating high school and moving into college that are on some form of antidepressant. And I asked myself this question. You're correct. 25% of women today are on some form of antidepressant. So these are women that, for whatever the reason, find it necessary to medicate themselves, either to deal with a temporary issue or to deal with long-term issues. I know women today that have been on antidepressants for at least 5 to 7 years. Antidepressants were never designed for that extended use. You can take a look at the studies and the details around those drugs. And then I asked the question as it relates specifically to boys. If more boys are being diagnosed with ADHD and more boys are now being put onto these drugs to somehow control that, if a mom, and to your point, you said probably most of these women are moms. If a mom needs needs mommy's little helper to get through the average day, to deal with work and relationships and friendships and so forth, how easy is it for her to go in and then give her son a pill, or for that matter, her daughter a pill?
See, I'll even take that to I'll spin it a little bit. So I'm not sure it's because they see raising the kids a little too difficult. They're having so much difficulty living with their own discomfort around whatever it is, right? There's an enormous amount of anxiety and discomfort, hence I need to go on an antidepressant. I'm a mom. I can't deal. I'm so stressed out. I have so much going on. They're having trouble coping, right? They don't have the coping mechanism. So they themselves are on an antidepressant or feel the need to. What would make anyone think then that they are able to watch the discomfort of their children navigating life, which is it's unnerving. I have 2 kids. I have an 18 and a 21-year-old, and there's lots. They have been, especially in recent years, at these teenage, going into college years, where the things that they're dealing with now are young adult things, legitimate love and breakups, right? Loss. This is when they're going to experience loss of loved ones, loss of friends, loss of friends' parents, all those kinds of things. It's not comfortable, and I can't solve it for them. I have to watch, right? Our job as parents is to allow them to learn how to deal with it, not to solve it. But if I can't cope with my own shit, how the fuck am I supposed to cope with them, watching them in this enormous amount of anxiety and stress? And so that's where I feel like, is it easier to put little Johnny onto something so that I don't have to watch him be so uncomfortable? Because God forbid, I don't want him crying all the time as a 20-year-old. My son, it took him a year and a half. I think we even had, did a he said, she said around the first loss of love for him. It was deep. It was horrible. Fetal position, a 6'2", manly 20-year-old laying in my bed in the fetal position, just tears streaming down his face. I didn't like that, but let's put it in perspective. It's first love. It's not going to be the last time his little old heart is broken.
Why do you think it is? And we'll use your son's first breakup as an example. Why would we want to prevent that from happening to our children? And here's why. If we take a look at the way that we see the world today and the lessons that we've learned, we only learn life lessons when bad stuff happens to us. It's not when things are good. When things are good, we learn nothing. In fact, the better things are, the more that we think we're in control. The more that we think we've got all this dialed in. But let something happen bad, whether it be a relationship, a job, financial decisions, whatever, and then that's when we learn lessons. I sit with a group of people right now today where one of the requirements that we have in our group is to tell our life story. That's part of what we do. It's a small group environment through the church that I attend, and it's really kind of become a universal approach across many faiths, not just Christianity. And what you will find, Laura, in every single situation, when they talk about their life stories, they always talk about the things that happened to them that were bad, but that they learned lessons from. That's what got them to where they are today. The things that they learned when they went through trials and tribulations in their life. Why would it be, as parents, that we would want to prevent our children from ever having any of that happen to them? We are going to set them up for complete failure in life because they will learn nothing. We don't learn things when life is good. We learn things when life is bad.
Because we all want what? We want our children, we want them to feel courageous and confident. Just like we want to feel courageous and confident. The problem is courage and confidence only comes from those moments in a fetal position.
They come from trials.
Fears.
That's right.
That's exactly right. And so you're absolutely right. We rip that opportunity for them to be courageous and to develop confidence by taking away the experience from them. And we take it away because of our own shit. And I am on this, I'm calling it, for my purposes, resilient motherhood. We have to lead, we have to parent from a place of being resilient, from a place of finding comfort in these things. Because if we don't, the article spelled it out. They're not prepared to go. We want them to be self-sufficient to go out and get jobs, but they're incapable of handling and getting a job because they don't have the resilience to navigate a job.
We want them to be self-sufficient so long as that self-sufficiency doesn't ask anything from them.
Right.
If it asks something from them, i.e. pain, heartache, frustration, anger, if it asks anything from them in that regard, then we don't want our kids to be self-sufficient.
No.
We want them to go through life as if they were the same 2-year-old that they used to be, where we can control and manage everything. And I'm telling you, and me and the Queen talk about this often, all right? If we do not allow our children at an early age, and I'm talking about the age of 5, 6, 7 years old, to make mistakes, to screw up, to have frustrations, they will never be able to connect the dots between actions and consequences.
18 and 21, my kids are just entering, the really significant decisions that they're going to make, and significant things are going to happen to them. And I feel, whereas I once would have said, my responsibilities as a parent, my major ones are over now that they're gone. I don't see it that way. I am informing, and I talk about this, and you and I have talked about this. I am informing for them what self-sufficient, resilient women look like. They're boys. I want them to resonate as humans with me, but I also want them to resonate. I want them to look at me as a self-sufficient and resilient and capable, courageous, and confident woman, because that's what I want them to partner with. That's what I want them to find comfort with and to look for. I don't, They won't know it unless they see it and they're familiar with it. You know, it's like you don't know what a zebra is unless you know what a fucking zebra is.
We certainly, it's our job to model it, right? And I can tell you that, and I'm just going to say this, and this is probably going to offend some people. If your kids are watching you down mommy's little helper every day to get through the day, and then you're making jokes about it, you're not modeling the right behavior. Laura, final thoughts.
We've got to, you know, we've got to start taking this seriously. It's just a very, very serious issues, and our kids need us. The next generation, they're our future leaders. They're the ones who are going to take care of us. We need to think about this now.
So the Queen's oldest went off to college in August, and in one of the conversations I had with him, you know, in not so many direct terms, I let it be known that, you know, you're an adult. And one of the last things I left with in the day he left from college, I said, don't come back for the first month. Don't come home. I want you to stay there, and I want you to begin to experience what it's like to be on your own, because this is the first day of the rest of your life, and it's time that you start living it. Laura, until next time, let's not wait so long again.
I know.
Bye.